Hello everyone! Welcome back to ChapterCast. It's a beautiful day to talk about something truly important, understanding progress. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, or just someone curious about how we learn and grow, tracking behavior is a powerful tool. Think about it. When you're trying to get healthier, you might track your steps or what you eat. Why? Because seeing the numbers helps you know if what you're doing is actually working. It gives you a clear picture, a roadmap of your journey. It's not just a guess, it's real, solid information that guides you toward your goal. This same idea is at the heart of helping people learn new skills and change behaviors for the better. Now you might be thinking, behavior? That seems complicated to measure. But I'm here to tell you that we can make it simple and clear. When we measure behavior, we're just counting or timing something specific. Maybe it's how many times a child raises their hand in class instead of calling out. Or it could be how many minutes a student can focus on their homework without getting distracted. By turning these actions into numbers, we take the guesswork out of it. We move from saying, I think he's doing better, to knowing he raised his hand 4 times today, which is up from twice yesterday. That kind of clarity is a game changer for everyone involved. This is where graphing comes in, and it's like turning on the lights in a dark room. A graph is a visual story of progress. It takes all those numbers we collected and puts them into a picture that our brains can understand in an instant. You can see the ups, the downs, and the moments when everything just clicks. It allows us to see patterns that we might have missed otherwise. That visual proof is so motivating. It shows us that our efforts are making a real difference, and it helps us decide what our next step should be. It's all about having the right information to make the best decisions for the people we care about. So, as we start this journey together, remember this simple truth. Measuring and graphing behavior isn't about judging or labeling. It's about helping. It's about providing support that is tailored, effective, and based on real evidence. It's about celebrating every small victory and having a clear path forward when we face challenges. It empowers us to be better helpers, better teachers, and better supporters. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into how we can use these amazing tools to unlock potential and create positive, lasting change. It's a story of hope, and it starts with a single data point. All right, before we get into the exciting stuff, let's go over a few key words. Think of this as our morning briefing, getting us all on the same page. First up is the graph itself. A graph is simply a picture that shows the relationship between 2 or more things. For us, it will show how a behavior changes over time. Every graph has 2 important lines. The line at the bottom, the horizontal one, is called the abscissa, or the x-axis. This is where we track time, like days or weeks. The line going up the side, the vertical one, is the ordinate, or the y-axis. This is where we track the behavior we are measuring. Next, let's talk about the things we are measuring. We have the dependent variable, which is the behavior we are interested in changing. Think of it as the behavior that depends on our efforts. For example, if we want a child to say please more often, the number of times they say please is our dependent variable. Then we have the independent variable. This is the strategy or intervention we are using to try and change the behavior. It's the what we do part. So, if we give a high five every time the child says please, the high five is our independent variable. Our goal is to see if our independent variable causes a change in the dependent variable. When we can show that our intervention, the independent variable, is the reason the behavior, the dependent variable, changed, we call this a functional relationship. It's like proving cause and effect. It's not just a coincidence. Our strategy really worked. To establish this, we often start by getting a baseline. Baseline is the measurement of the behavior before we start any intervention. It's our starting point, our before picture. It shows us what the behavior looks like naturally, which is so important for knowing if our plan actually made a difference later on. Finally, we have a few fancy names for the types of graphs we'll be using. These are called research designs. We'll explore the A-B design, the A-B-A-B reversal design, the alternating treatments design, the changing criterion design, and multiple baseline designs. Don't let the names intimidate you. They are just different ways to set up our plan to see if our intervention is working. Each one is a different tool in our toolbox, perfect for different situations. We'll go through them one by one, and you'll see they are much simpler than they sound. Now let's get to it. Let's start with the simplest and most straightforward design of all, the A-B design. It's the foundation for everything else we'll discuss. Think of it as a simple before and after picture. The A in the design stands for the baseline phase. This is the period where we just observe and measure the behavior without doing anything to change it. We're just gathering information to understand the current situation. For instance, let's say we want to help a student, Leo, complete more of his math problems during class. For 1 week, we would simply count how many problems he finishes each day. That's our phase A, our baseline. Once we have a clear picture of the baseline, we move on to phase B. The B stands for the intervention phase. This is where we introduce our plan, our independent variable. We believe this plan will help change the behavior we're targeting. Continuing with our example of Leo, our intervention might be to offer him 5 extra minutes of free time on the computer for every 5 math problems he completes. We would implement this plan and continue to count the number of problems he finishes each day. This is our phase B. We are now actively trying to influence the behavior. On a graph, this would look very clear. You would see the data points from phase A, the baseline week, and then you'd see a line on the graph separating it from the data points in phase B, the intervention week. We would hope to see the number of completed math problems go up during phase B. This visual comparison between the before A and after B is the core of the AB design. It gives us a quick at-a-glance idea of whether our strategy might be having a positive effect on Leo's work completion. However, there is one important thing to know about the AB design. While it's simple and very useful for everyday tracking, it doesn't definitively prove a functional relationship. Why? Because something else could have caused the change. Maybe Leo just started to like math more that week, or maybe he got a good night's sleep. We can't be 100% sure our intervention was the sole reason for the improvement. But that's okay. It's an excellent starting point and often gives us enough information to keep moving forward with a plan that seems to be working. Now, what if we want to be more certain that our intervention is the true cause of the change? That's where the ABAB reversal design comes in. It's a bit like being a scientist in our own classroom or home. This design gives us much stronger proof. It starts just like the AB design. We begin with phase A, the baseline, where we measure the behavior as it is. Let's imagine we're helping a young girl named Maya learn to share her toys. During the first baseline, or A, we would simply count how many times she shares with her brother during a 30-minute playtime each day. Next, we introduce our intervention in the first phase B. Our plan might be to give Maya lots of praise and a sticker each time she shares a toy. We implement this, and we continue to count the instances of sharing. Hopefully, we see the number of times she shares go way up on our graph. This is great! But to be sure it was our praise and sticker plan that worked, we need to take it a step further. This is where the reversal part comes in, and it's the key to this whole design. It may seem a little counterintuitive at first, but it is incredibly powerful. After seeing success in the first B phase, we temporarily go back to baseline. This is the second phase A. We stop giving praise and stickers for sharing and just observe again. If our intervention was truly the reason for the change, we would expect the sharing behavior to decrease and go back down to, or near, its original baseline levels. This step is crucial because it helps rule out other explanations. If the behavior stays high even without our intervention, then something else was likely responsible for the improvement. Seeing the behavior reverse tells us that our strategy was indeed making the difference. Finally, to finish the design and most importantly, to end on a positive note, we reintroduce our intervention one last time in the second phase B. We start giving praise and stickers again for sharing. If the behavior goes back up once more, we have some very strong evidence of a functional relationship. We've shown that when the intervention is in place, the behavior improves, and when it's taken away, the behavior declines. This ABAB pattern gives us great confidence that our strategy is effective and helps us make very informed decisions about how to best support Maya's learning journey. Sometimes we have a few good ideas for an intervention, and we're not sure which one will work best. Or maybe we need to see results quickly and can't spend a long time in a baseline phase. This is the perfect time for the alternating treatments design, also known as a multi-element design. This design allows us to compare 2 or more different interventions to see which one is more effective. The key here is that we switch back and forth between the different interventions very quickly, maybe even within the same day or from one day to the next. Let's think about a teenager, David, who we are helping to reduce the time he spends on his phone during homework hours. We have 2 ideas. Intervention B is a reward system. For every 30 minutes he stays off his phone, he earns 10 minutes of video game time later. Intervention C is a response cost system. He starts with 1 hour of video game time and he loses 10 minutes each time he checks his phone. Using an alternating treatments design, on Monday we might use the reward system, intervention B, on Tuesday the response cost system, intervention C, on Wednesday the reward system again, and so on. We would randomly alternate between the two. On our graph, we would plot the data for each intervention using different symbols or different colored lines. For example, the data points for the reward system, intervention B, might be circles, and the data points for the response cost system, intervention C, might be triangles. This makes it incredibly easy to see which strategy is working better. We can look at the graph and see if one line is consistently lower, showing less phone use, than the other. This rapid comparison gives us quick and valuable feedback on what is most effective for David. The real beauty of this design is its efficiency and clarity. We don't have to wait weeks to see a trend. The side-by-side comparison gives us answers much faster. It helps us avoid wasting time on a less effective strategy and allows us to quickly adopt the approach that yields the best results. It's a fantastic tool for making data-driven decisions when you have multiple options on the table. It's all about finding the best fit for the individual in the most efficient way possible, ensuring they get the support that works for them sooner rather than later. Some goals aren't an all-or-nothing thing. They need to be achieved gradually. Think about goals like increasing exercise, reading more pages in a book, or reducing the number of sodas you drink per day. For these types of behaviors, the changing criterion design is the perfect fit. This design involves setting a series of small, achievable goals or criteria that move the person closer and closer to the ultimate target. It's all about taking it one step at a time, which can be much less overwhelming and more motivating for the learner. Let's imagine we're helping a student named Sarah increase the amount of time she spends reading each night. Her ultimate goal is to read for 30 minutes, but right now, she's only reading for about 5 minutes. If we just set the goal at 30 minutes, she might feel defeated before she even starts. So we use a changing criterion design. First, we get a baseline of how long she reads naturally. Then, we set our first criterion. We might say, Sarah, if you read for 10 minutes, you can have an extra 10 minutes of screen time. We keep this criterion in place until her reading time is consistently at or above 10 minutes. Once she has mastered that first step, we change the criterion. We raise the bar just a little bit. The next goal might be to read for 15 minutes to earn the reward. We wait for her to meet this new goal consistently for a few days. After she's successful with that, we might increase it to 20 minutes, then 25, and finally to our ultimate goal of 30 minutes. Each time the behavior stabilizes at the set criterion level, it becomes the new baseline for the next step. This gradual increase makes the final goal seem much more manageable. On a graph, this design looks like a staircase. You'll see the data points for Sarah's reading time meet the first criterion line. Then the line steps up, and the data points follow it to the new, higher level. This step-by-step visual is powerful. It demonstrates that the behavior is changing precisely when we change the goal. This provides strong evidence of a functional relationship between our reward system and her increased reading time. It celebrates small successes along the way and builds confidence, making it a wonderfully effective and encouraging strategy for gradual behavior change. What happens when a behavior is not something you want to reverse, like with the ABAB design? For example, once a child learns to tie their shoes, we wouldn't want them to unlearn it just to prove our teaching method worked. This is where multiple baseline designs are a lifesaver. This powerful design allows us to show a functional relationship without having to take away the intervention. Instead of reversing, we apply the intervention at different times across different behaviors, different settings, or different people. Let's start with a multiple baseline across behaviors design. Imagine we want to teach a child, Sam, 3 different self-help skills: brushing his teeth, making his bed, and packing his own lunchbox. We would start by taking a baseline on all 3 behaviors at the same time. Then, we would introduce our intervention, perhaps a sticker chart, for just the first behavior, brushing his teeth. We'd continue to take baseline data on making the bed and packing the lunchbox. Once we see improvement in teeth brushing, we then introduce the intervention for the second behavior, making the bed, while still taking baseline on the third. Finally, we'd apply it to packing the lunchbox. Next, there's the multiple baseline across settings design. This is useful when we want a behavior to happen in different places. Let's say we are helping a student, Maria, to participate more in class discussions. We would measure her participation in 3 different settings: her math class, her history class, and her science class. We'd start by introducing an intervention, like specific praise from the teacher, only in her math class. Once her participation increases there, we would then introduce the same intervention in her history class and later in her science class. The behavior changes only when the intervention is introduced in that specific setting. Finally, we have the multiple baseline across subjects design. Here we are targeting the same behavior for several different people. Suppose we are teaching 3 students, Tom, Lisa, and Juan, a new strategy for solving word problems. We would take baseline data on all 3 students. Then, we would teach the strategy to Tom first. After his performance improves, we would teach it to Lisa and then finally to Juan. In all 3 types of multiple baseline designs, the power comes from seeing the behavior change only when and where we apply our intervention. This staggered introduction acts as the proof, showing a clear functional relationship without ever having to reverse the progress. Now for the fun part, let's roll up our sleeves and learn how to build a graph from scratch. It's easier than you think, and it's the best way to bring all your data to life. All you need is a piece of paper. Graph paper is great, but any paper will do. And a pencil. The first step is to draw your 2 axes. Draw a horizontal line across the bottom of your page. This is your abscissa or x-axis. This axis will represent the passage of time. You should label it with what you are tracking, like days, sessions, or weeks. Then mark it with numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Next, draw a vertical line up the left side of your page, starting from the end of your x-axis. This is your ordinate, or y-axis. This axis will represent the behavior you are measuring. You need to give this axis a label too, describing the behavior. For example, you might label it number of times hand was raised or minutes spent on homework. Then you'll add numbers along this line, starting from 0 at the bottom and going up in even intervals, like 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, or whatever scale makes sense for the behavior you are measuring. Once your axes are labeled, it's time to plot your data points. Let's say on day 1, the behavior happened 3 times. You would go to the number 1 on your x-axis, time, and then move your finger straight up until you are across from the number 3 on your y-axis behavior. You make a dot right there. Then, let's say on day 2, the behavior happened 4 times. You go to day 2 on the x-axis, move up to the 4 on the y-axis, and make another dot. You do this for all of your data. Once you have a few points, you can connect them with a straight line. This line makes the trend so easy to see. Finally, every good graph needs a title. The title should be clear and descriptive, telling anyone who looks at it exactly what it's about. A good title might be Maria's hand raising during math class or David's homework completion. You should also add phase lines. If you are doing an A-B design after you plot your baseline data, you draw a vertical line on the graph to show where the baseline phase A ended and the intervention phase B began. You can even label the phases A and B, and that's it. You've created a powerful visual tool that tells a clear story of progress. As we come to the end of our conversation this morning, let's take a moment to reflect on the big picture. We've talked about why we measure, what all those key terms mean, and how to use different designs to track change. All of these pieces, from the simple A-B graph to the more complex multiple baseline design, are more than just academic exercises. They are tools of hope and empowerment. They allow us to move beyond guessing and hoping and into a world of knowing and understanding. They give us a clear, honest look at what's working and what isn't. The real magic of a well-made graph is its ability to communicate. It tells a story that words alone sometimes cannot. A parent can look at a graph and see in an instant the progress their child has made over the past month. A teacher can use a graph to show a student how their own efforts are leading to real success, which can be incredibly motivating. This visual feedback helps everyone stay on the same page, working together toward a common goal. It fosters collaboration and makes sure that the support we provide is truly making a positive impact on someone's life. Remember that a good research design helps us find that all-important functional relationship. It's about being confident that our teaching strategy, our reward system, or our support plan is the reason for the wonderful changes we are seeing. When we know what works, we can do more of it. And if something isn't working, the graph will show us that too. It gives us permission to say, okay, this approach isn't the right fit. Let's try something new. This ability to adjust our strategy based on real data is what leads to meaningful and lasting change, preventing us from getting stuck in a rut with an ineffective plan. So, whether you are a professional in the field, a dedicated teacher, a loving parent, or just someone who believes in the power of human potential, I encourage you to embrace these tools. Don't be intimidated by the terminology or the process. At its heart, it is simply about paying close attention, celebrating small steps, and using information to light the way forward. By carefully measuring and graphing behavior, we are not just collecting data, we are opening doors to learning, growth, and greater independence for the people we serve. And that is a truly wonderful thing. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to subscribe to ChapterCast for more chapter video breakdowns.